The pork industry is working to overturn a ruling on how pregnant sows are being treated with a new bill called Save Our Bacon.
More notably, one of the key companies pushing for the Save the Bacon Act is the Chinese WH Group, who owns major pork seller Smithfield Farms.
That's right. We spoke with New York Times opinion columnist Nick Kristof about the Chinese influence in American policy, as well as his beloved family pig, Brunhilde.
When I was a teenager, we raised hogs here on the farm, and this was a traditional farm, so the hogs wandered outside. And I write about Brunhilde because I think that there's this perception of livestock as these commodities. They're these kind of units. And in fact, when you get to know them, they're individuals. And Brunhilde, Brunhilde had a stronger personality than almost any people I can think of. And she was ornery. She was not a lovable pig, but she was so strong-willed. She was a devoted mom. She kept wandering off in pursuit of creeks, and I'd have to go chase after her. And we would, she was very volatile. She was always talking and squealing, and I'd be yelling at her and she'd be yelling back at me. But, what a personality.
But the debate here is about these birthing crates that basically keep pigs in a pen to the point where they can't get up and turn around while they have babies that are caring for them. And it's interesting. This has been a debate for decades. I remember when I was studying abroad in England in 2005, believe it or not, I watched a play on this issue because the EU regulations were coming in and British pig farmers were upset about this then. There's been a lot of efforts to try to stop this process. Talk to us about what these crates are, what they mean for just, people have called them torturous, what they're like, and the legislation that has been put in place in the U.S. here to try to stop their use.
So there are two kind of crates. So one is for actual birthing and when the piglets are very young. And there's a little more of an argument for that to prevent the sow from squashing her pigs. But I think there's really no argument whatsoever for what are called gestation crates, which are used when the sow, when the female pig is pregnant. And these are these tiny little crates where, as you say, she can't even turn around, never sees the sun, never sets foot on the ground. This, imagine your golden retriever in a context like that. And when voters are asked, they think this is a terrible idea. And voters in both Massachusetts and in California, by huge majorities, passed ballot measures that would ban the sale of pork that was raised in this way. And so that sets up the confrontation that we're now talking about.
This is this lingering issue. You have polling that shows 84% of Americans consider this process unacceptable. Legislation starts to get passed, and then, as you write, the pork industry squealed and enter the Save Our Bacon bill. So what does the Save Our Bacon bill do, and who is backing it?
So the Save Our Bacon bill would essentially overturn these laws in Massachusetts and in California. And, there are no doubt will be other laws similar to that passed in other states. So it would ban a state from barring the sale of pork raised in other states by these, using gestation crates. And the pork industry argues that one state doesn't have the right to tell other states how to raise their pigs. It also says that this would make pork more expensive, which actually I think is true. I mean, the way pigs are raised right now, it really is incredibly efficient. The pork industry has done an amazing job holding down pork prices, but at a real cost for pigs and for humans. And so this has come down partly because voters really don't like the idea of pigs in gestation crates. So the pork industry and its supporters sneaked the Save Our Bacon Act into the agriculture bill this year, which is a kind of must-pass legislation. And it passed the House that way. So it's in the House version of the agriculture bill. And now going to the Senate, and there's now a big fight in the Senate about whether to include that Save Our Bacon Act in the Senate ag bill, or then ultimately in the conference committee that'll decide what happens.
But there's another issue here, and that is that Smithfield Farms is owned by a Chinese corporation now. And this is one of the big groups trying to push this bill through Congress. What is the concern here? What is the bigger story about foreign influence through corporations impacting legislation in Congress?
So I think this point has particularly resonated with conservatives, and it's been striking, Christina, that this is an issue where liberals and conservatives have really come together, both on the humanity of dealing with pigs this way, but also on some of these larger structural issues like this one. And I think the basic feeling is, why should we be privileging a major Chinese company that started as a state-owned company and still has somewhat unclear, murky ties to the Chinese state? Why should we privilege that enormous behemoth over the voters in the U.S. in terms of restrictions? And it was also a big debate when this Chinese company then acquired Smithfield some years ago. But I think now it just comes down to, why privilege this Chinese company over the voters in the U.S.?
Is there concern that if this Save Our Bacon Act passes, that you could see more of these foreign-owned conglomerates trying to do something similar?
So, I think that foreign companies...
Or is that already happening? I guess that's already happening. Yeah.
Everybody is always lobbying for advantage, and that goes for foreign companies and for American companies. But I do think that this is a particularly clear confrontation between the will of voters and the profits for a major overseas company, especially one that has ties to the Chinese state. That's pretty unusual.